Regardless of the loss against the Broncos, that game was one of the most enjoyable viewing experiences I've had watching the Browns in quite some time. Actually, I could say that about the past 2 games, and that joy in watching the Browns again has come thanks to Jameis Winston and Jerry Jeudy. These two have really started to connect over the past 2 games, and that Monday nighter was a glimpse of what can be possible if this tandem sticks together in the future. When Jerry Jeudy declared for the draft in 2020, coming out of Alabama, there were a ton of high hopes for him. A lot of the draft experts, and myself included, not calling myself a draft expert, viewed him as the #1 receiver in that draft. What I saw was a polished route runner, a guy who had great release work and who had fantastic straight line speed. Everything he needed to be a dominant NFL receiver. And the Broncos saw that too. That's why they took him 15th overall. Throughout his entirety in Denver, though, he never quite separated from the pack. Years went by and he never broke 1,000 yards. Last year, the disappointment culminated in Steve Smith calling him a jag, just a guy. Who knows why it never worked in Denver? Personally, I have some ideas. I look at the fact that they had 3 different head coaches during his time there. He played with 6 different starting quarterbacks. He was never in a productive offense, and he never had the gunslinger or the quarterback who had confidence in him to be able to connect and fully develop into the guy who people thought he was. When he was traded to Cleveland, there were a lot of mixed reviews. People thought the Browns were just getting a #2, not a true #1, the guy who would succeed Amari Cooper following the season, where even before he was traded, it was widely accepted that he wouldn't be re-signing with Cleveland. While he was playing with Deshaun Watson, there was really no production to speak of whatsoever. But if you were watching the channel from the beginning of the season, you know that I highlighted that Jeudy was running wide open. He just wasn't getting the ball or opportunities. Enter Jameis Winston a couple of weeks ago, and it is clear as day that this trade and the contract that they signed him to is an absolute snipe from Andrew Berry. Jameis Winston just gets his players the ball and he gives them chances. That's all that they've needed. And this has opened the eyes to the talent that is sitting in the Browns receiving room right now. Not only did we see that Jerry Jeudy was worth way more than that 5th and 6th round pick that they traded for to get him, but Cedric Tillman was worth the 74th overall pick a couple of years ago, and that Elijah Moore really could be worth that 2nd round pick that they traded to the Jets to get him. These guys just needed accurate and consistent targets, and this has now transformed their passing game into one of the best in the NFL. Now, you might be resistant and arguing that Elijah Moore wasn't worth the 2nd round pick. Through the majority of his time in Cleveland, it has been very sporadic, but again, since Jameis has entered, he's turned into a guy who looks like a 2nd round pick. He makes extremely difficult, tight window catches. He has fantastic body control along the sidelines and in the back of the end zone, like we saw against New Orleans. And he consistently creates separation on most of the routes that he runs, giving his quarterback easy, safe throws. That is what a 2nd round receiver looks like. And quite honestly, I was opposed to it for a while. I spoke against it for a while, but I think that there is a reality where we see the Browns re-sign him following the end of his contract after this year. The real question, though, is will they keep the band together in Cleveland? Will they re-sign Elijah Moore? But more importantly, will they re-sign Jameis Winston? With so many uncertainties in Cleveland right now, particularly the run game, the offensive line, and the defense, the one bright shining spot has been their passing game. And minus 2 to 3 bad decisions per game, Jameis Winston has been the catalyst in transforming that. As you already saw in last week's video, the bridge to the future, I would re-sign Jameis to a 2-year contract. And I would really be evaluating Elijah Moore over the rest of the season to see if it's worth to bring him back too, because consistency and chemistry is very valuable. A few weeks ago, when things never seemed so dire, I said that the most important thing was that the Browns needed to play with effort and heart. Those two things would pay dividends going forward. It would galvanize the team and it would set them up for success in 2025, even if they just keep losing these games. If they lose them like that, where it's a couple preventable mistakes and the team is playing hard all the way through, that is a sign that it's a healthy locker room. And Jameis Winston, Jeudy, Tillman, Elijah Moore, and David Njoku, when he is catching the ball, of course, have provided a spark that has changed the outlook of this team. And it makes the fact that they started Deshaun Watson for as long as they did and didn't start Winston almost criminal. One thing that has really not improved at all is this Browns running game. And I point to this as largely the reason why Jameis Winston threw 3 interceptions. No, the run game, the offensive line, the running backs, they didn't throw the picks. Jameis did. He has to be better. Absolutely. But when you can't move the ball effectively on the ground, it puts the ball in the hands of your quarterback. It makes him have to throw almost 60 times. People want to point to Dorsey or Stefanski saying, why aren't we running the ball? Why aren't we running the ball? We need to run the ball more. They can't run the ball effectively because they are losing those mono-y-mono battles in the trenches, and the running back talent right now just isn't what it used to be. I think if you put Jameis Winston on the 2020 to 2022 Browns, he would be a completely different guy. Remember, those Browns teams used to be able to run the ball on 3rd and medium, and they would convert. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt were in their primes. This offensive line was a bit younger and stronger, and this is what made them so effective, especially in 2020. So we really shouldn't be looking to blame coaching too much or scheme. In reality, I think it just comes down to personnel. Like I mentioned, those mono-y-mono matchups, those guys, Teller, Bitonio, this offensive line is honestly just losing more and more of those matchups that they used to dominate. They're banged up, they're getting older. It's not that complicated. Additionally, though, I think that Nick Chubb was just so good earlier on before this injury that he made the offensive line look better than they really were. His vision, his jump cut ability, and his burst made running lanes for himself. They worked in tandem to create those opportunities, but I think Nick Chubb created so much of that because he was so talented. I still think he is talented like that. He's just still recovering. But I think the proof is in the pudding. When you look at what Nick Chubb was doing in 2022, early on, before he was injured in game 2 in 23, it was still effective. Then you put Jerome Ford in the mix, it's not quite the same. And that's why I think you could improve this running game by improving the running back talent. And that's why I think the Browns are in the market for a dynamic franchise-changing running back in this upcoming draft. There are a few options available, but none are more lauded, none are more decorated than Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. I just uploaded a 40-minute draft profile and film study on Ashton Jeanty, going through his strengths, his weaknesses, and this guy is seriously everything that people are saying about him. He is a fantastic player. He is a franchise-changing player. You can go to Patreon, you can check that out today. Just do a free trial if you want to check it out, but if you like what you see, we are putting a ton more out there. We also have a Cam Ward video out right now. Is he the potential pick? You can check it out, and we're going to be adding a lot of that as the season goes on and we get closer to the draft. So that's all on Patreon. You can support the page, become official members of the Optimistic Fan Club. We appreciate you. You'll get listed as a producer at the end of all these videos on YouTube, but check that out. It's definitely worth it. And I think that he would be a great piece in Cleveland. I think taking a big swing on Ashton Jeanty in the first round, or even snagging Devin Neal from Kansas in the mid rounds, would do so much to bolster this room. And I think that immediately, without even having to upgrade any of the current offensive line pieces, it would make them look better than they've been playing on the ground this year. However, I think that there are a lot of personnel pieces that you need to address on this offensive line, because much like planning for life after Nick Chubb, you've got to plan for life after Joel Bitonio. Getting older, it's just the reality of the game. We don't know how much longer he has as a Cleveland Brown. And with all that being said, I still think they need to bring Nick Chubb back. He is still recovering from that injury, and I believe that he can get to, at minimal, 80% of what he used to be. And 80% of a prime Nick Chubb is still a top 15 back in this league. When it comes to this defense, though, I really don't know what to make of them. If Jameis doesn't throw 2 pick sixes, I think that they played well enough to get this win, without a doubt. But most of their production is coming from Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward. You have consistent staple pieces like Grant Delpit. Jordan Hicks has been a great addition. You have Shelby Harris. You have Dalvin Tomlinson. Those guys are short short-term rentals, though. We don't know how long they're going to be, and I don't think they're franchise cornerstones by any means. And we have no idea what the hell happened to Martin Emerson, a guy who looked like he was going to be a surefire Pro Bowler a year ago. We don't know if JOK is going to recover. Prayers to him every single day. Hope that he is fine just in life in general, but making that leap back to being an all-pro level linebacker is very uncertain. And who's going to be the consistent anchor in the back end with Grant Delpit? Because Juan Thornhill hasn't lived up to that trade. That's one thing with Andrew Berry where you look at that and it hasn't really panned out. Ronnie Hickman has been good at times, but we just don't know. In general, you just can't rely on any of the guys outside of the Delpits, the Garretts, and the Wards. All those other spots are up for constant revampment. The defense needs more hitters, more fast-flowing defenders, more guys with noses for the ball who are tough, big, and long. And one thing that we really need to reconsider is our takes on Andrew Berry. A couple of weeks ago, we were very down on him. I was down on him. A lot of people are screaming for him to be fired. Maybe he was the architect behind the Deshaun Watson trade. I still, without proof of course, would put most of that on Paul DePodesta and Jimmy Haslam. Check out the Paul DePodesta video. That's a lot of conjecture, whatever. Life is conjecture. It's my opinion. But Andrew Berry's drafting, his free agency approach, and his trades have really come to shine in the back half of this season. Before Mike Hall was injured, he was looking like an exceptional pick in the second round. Alex Wright was poised for a huge year before he got injured in week 2. JOK was going for a potential all-pro season. Mohamed Diabate has taken major leaps and looks like he could be a linebacker of the future in this front seven. I think Grant Delpit has become one of the top safeties in the league, and he consistently shows up on Sundays. The signings of Dalvin Tomlinson and Shelby Harris were, I think, the biggest transformational pieces in the Browns defense last season, and they're still making plays today. Jerry Jeudy has never looked better, and he is a clear #1 receiver now. Cedric Tillman has ascended this season before his concussion, and the other guys who have fallen off, like Emerson and Greg Newsome, had moments where they looked like very solid core pieces. And let's not forget, John Dorsey missed on picks too. He also engineered the terrible OBJ trade, which I hated from the day it was made. The point is that no GM is going to be perfect. Everyone is going to miss on picks. And I think it is worth it based on what we've started to see over the back half of this season with all of those moves that he's made to give him some significant real draft equity. I think he can learn from the mistakes of the Siaka Ikas of the world, the Anthony Schwartzes. And throughout the rest of the year, we'll start to see, are the guys like Diabate, are the guys like Tillman, can Thrash start to emerge? Can all of those mid-round talents that they acquired start to improve and really become professionals? It's worth watching. It is worth being patient because our perspective could completely change on Andrew Berry by the end of the year. This Sunday, we've got the Steelers in their house. And even though Pittsburgh fans use it as a cope whenever the Browns beat them, this one really is our Super Bowl for this season. To win in Pittsburgh for the first time since 2003 with this crew of guys in a season that was lost due to the unwillingness to start Winston earlier on would be the highlight of the year, and I would be happy with that. Regardless of the disappointment, this team is finally fun to watch again. Yes, the standards will be much higher come September, but let's enjoy this ride. And the future is not as bleak as it seemed a couple of weeks ago.